And we are back with another episode of Tidal Flooding Talk, brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition. New episodes come out every Tuesday evening, almost everywhere where you get your podcast, on YouTube, on Facebook. Pretty much everywhere. Just type in Tidal Flooding Talk, you'll find us. Make sure to like and subscribe as well. We have plenty of episodes for you in the archives, and we are loaded up with episodes really into the middle of September at this point here. So I am joined with me with the whole gang again. Gangs is back together. Dan Skeldon, Palma Shiles. Dan, Palma, how's it hanging? How are we doing?
It's great. We're past July 4th. Summer, flying by as it always does, but hopefully lots of warmth and sunshine and quiet weather ahead.
Yeah, we were out on the boat for 4th of July and we were paying attention to the weather forecast and the radar because we decided to go in early because of the forecast and we beat that wind by I think 10 minutes. So, and there were still plenty of boats on the water, so I don't know. It's very important to keep a close eye on that.
So two questions for you here. Well, actually, one question and then a statement. Question is, whose forecast did you look at, Dan's or mine's?
Forecast? Why? All right. So
well, you said you were checking the forecast, so now we're wondering.
We were checking the radar. I'll say that.
Okay, you're checking.
It was the radar.
Give her another option: Dan's, Joe's, or other. Because it may not necessarily be one of ours.
Well, I just don't want her to say it was the weather app.
Oh,
because she knows better. Unless it's the everything weather app. Otherwise, she knows better not to check it.
So I will be honest, lately I do watch Joe's forecast because he's more local, Dan. Don't take offense to it.
That'd be my answer if I was at the Jersey Shore. Yeah.
Then, okay.
But yeah, and July, now my
looking at
3-year-old is very interested in the radar.
What radar app are you using?
I'd rather not say because I don't want you guys to bully me.
Dan, correct. Dan can jump in, but I don't think there's really a bad radar app to use because it's all the same information. I mean, there are like Radar Scope is like for pros, but I'm not expecting Palma to use Radar Scope. So
no, radar is radar. I mean, one app might be 4 minutes old, the other one's 6 minutes old or whatever. But no, I mean, I think it's responsible. She was a responsible boater. She's following the weather. She's seeking shelter. So Palma checked all the good boater, knowledgeable.
That's true.
Weather person boxes. So good job, Palma.
There you go. Dan,
I use the Weather Channel app, just saying.
Well, that's fine. That's okay. And for radar, that's perfectly fine. For radar, it's perfectly fine. Anyway, so let's bring in our guest. Speaking of boats and being out on the water, hurricane season. It is hurricane season. Thankfully, not much of a hurricane season. And Levi Silvers, research scientist at Colorado State University, is probably going to tell us that there likely won't be much of a hurricane season coming up. Of course, with the big caveat that it only takes one for it to be an active season near you. So anyway, we welcome Levi back onto the show. And I say back onto the show because we goofed. And I'll say I goofed. We started recording him back in, I don't think it was April. And then we had some issues with the streaming here on our Riverside platform. And I didn't realize it till it was too late. So Levi was being a nice guy. He said he'll come back on. Then he emailed us. He said, there's not really much to talk about. Do you want me to come on? I said, yeah, of course, because no news is just as important as bad news for hurricane season. So how's it going, Levi?
It's going good. Thanks for having me on again. It's a pleasure to talk to you three and learn more about your podcast. So I can advertise it to the people I know.
Yeah, excellent. We're looking forward to having you here and chatting with us. So you're in Colorado most of the time, but you're in Virginia now as you're speaking with us. Did you just want to get like closer to the Atlantic Ocean to like feel the vibes of hurricane season? Was it just you weren't feeling it in Colorado? You need to get to the water?
Well, I wouldn't have been sorry if we had some activity, but I have family in Virginia. Actually, the family used to be from New Jersey, so when I told them I was going on this podcast for New Jersey, they were all very curious. And yeah, I think they'll probably check it out at some point. They used to live in Bergen County, and so then they immigrated to the South.
That's good that they're from Bergen County, because then we don't have to like quiz you on what part of New Jersey that's in, because that's very clearly North Jersey.
Yeah, clearly North Jersey. I lived just outside of Princeton for a while as well, so that's not North Jersey, but I feel like
That's
I at
right.
least have a little bit of appreciation for what it's like in Jersey. I was there for about 4 years.
Right. So what part of Jersey is Princeton in?
I'm from Colorado, right? So I have no skin in this game. It doesn't matter. You can make fun of me all day long, but I'd call it Central Jersey.
That's a
Although I'd also say if I grew up in Colorado, Jersey is Jersey. It's this tiny little state on the east, right? But going to Jersey, I can see there's a big difference between what is it, Cape May and
Cape May.
Bergen
Yep.
County.
Yep.
So
That's very
I can
fair.
see that there's that difference. And Central New Jersey, it's got its own feel going on, and it was good.
Beautiful answer, Levi. Beautiful
It
answer.
is one of Joe's biggest, I don't want to say pet peeves, but let's just say most passionate issues, I think.
That's true. But Levi he sounds like, he has experience in North and Central, and I'm assuming he's been down in South a little bit. Sometimes there's people who've only been in like North Jersey, and then they say, oh, like South Jersey's like New Brunswick or Princeton. I'm like, no. Like,
Well, I'm glad Levi
Yeah.
passed the test, and I'm glad Levi can continue on as a Tidal Flooding Talk guest. So,
that's correct. Yeah, that's it.
good job, Levi.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so let's get into this. So I want to start off with, where are we with the hurricane forecast, but then we want to get into you. So let's just get off, where is Colorado State University at with the hurricane forecast right now? We're talking on July 8th for everybody listening.
Yeah, so July 8th is one of the days that we issued an update. Our initial forecast came out in April, and then last month we did an update, and now we do another update where we kind of wait to see how the conditions are evolving in time. We see how the predictions for the coming months are changing over time relative to what they were in April and June. And so right now we're lowering what our forecast initially was for slightly below average, and then we dropped down a little bit more in June, and we dropped it down even further now to be substantially below average. And so what that means in terms of numbers is we're forecasting 9 named storms. We've already had one, Tropical Storm Arthur, that didn't really do too much, kind of formed right off the coast and then didn't last very long. So we expect 8. Well, we're forecasting 8 more. There's a kind of a range of probability around that. We're forecasting 4 hurricanes and then 1 major hurricane. So all of those are below the average. The average number of hurricanes that we're comparing to is 3.2, and that average, all of these averages are relative to 1990 to 2020. So we could look at different time periods and see how those averages compare to the climatologies from different decades. But because this is the climatology that NOAA is using at the moment, that's why we kind of use that 1990 to 2020 time period. So the average number of major hurricanes is 3.2, according to NOAA. The average number of hurricanes is 7.2, and the average number of named storms is 14.4. And so we're well below all 3 of those numbers.
Now, I'll ask, since I'm the only host that is not a meteorologist, what is causing the season to appear to be less active than usual?
That's a great question. That's kind of the first. Yeah, we all want to know why. There's really 2 things. One is that the sea surface temperature is not as warm as it was in previous years, like last year and the year before that, so really recently. But the primary reason is the occurrence of El Nino right now in the Pacific Ocean. And so that was forecasted in the past. In April, we expected that to happen, but now we can see that it actually is happening. And we're expecting it to get quite a bit stronger. And so the El Nino in the Pacific Ocean tends to lead to a lot of vertical wind shear in the tropical Atlantic and in the Gulf of Mexico. And in particular, what that means is it's wind conditions that are very unfavorable for tropical storms. So as things start to form, they tend to get pulled apart. And those values, those levels of wind shear are just a lot higher now because of El Nino. And it makes it a lot harder for the storms to form.
Levi, do you know off the top of your head, when was the last time that Colorado State issued a forecast with single-digit named storms? I mean, an average is in the teens, right? And now
Right.
the forecast has been lowered to 9. I'm like, how rare is that, especially over the past couple decades?
I'm going to check as we talk. I think it was 2015. That's a great question. I think things, the last couple of years of weather have been kind of wonky. And so I think everybody has kind of these extremes in mind. There's been, it's like already looking like a bad wildfire season and everything. So sometimes it feels like everything's been extreme, but there have been years that have been quieter. I'm double checking, but like I said, I think it's 2015. Which is, more than a decade ago.
Yeah, I know. While you were looking, I was going to hop in. That was the last time we had, I believe, what's considered a very strong El Nino.
Yep. Yeah, there were kind of weaker El Ninos I think 2020. There was a couple cases, like I believe it's 2020 or 2022. There was an El Nino, and so we forecasted a low number. It wasn't in the single digits though, but then we ended up having just off the chart sea surface temperatures that kind of overrode what El Nino was doing and just pushed the hurricane season into active. Anyways, but normally with the El Nino, it really brings it down. Let's see, 2015.
And also, just for the record, I think you guys said this off the top. A quiet season doesn't mean a non-season. It's great you guys issue this forecast because it gets people talking about the hurricane season. The frequent updates help as well. When is the next update? So you update in early July, and then you continue to see how those sea surface temperatures evolve and how El Nino evolves. But is there another update as we work towards the peak of the season?
Yes. So the next update will be August. Let me see the exact date. Early August. And then what we do is we also will start to issue updates every 2 weeks once we get to that August. And so that way, when we're going through the peak of the season, we issue updates every couple of weeks to just kind of let people know kind of what the immediate conditions are. Right now, we're just looking at really long-term, broad, big picture conditions. But then we can look at more individual tropical waves that may be happening and see exactly what's going on in the next couple of weeks. So the next update is April 9th. It's
August 9th.
Okay.
August 9th, August 5th for this year. Yeah. Also, our forecast in 2015 was actually for 7 named storms, 3 hurricanes and 1 major. So that was a little bit lower even than it is today.
Gotcha. All right, we're going to take our first break here, and then we'll come back with more with Levi on Tidal. Base flood elevation is the level floodwaters are expected to reach in a major storm. Building below it puts your home at risk. Building just 1 foot above it can significantly lower flood insurance costs and reduce flood damage. And don't forget to elevate mechanical equipment like air conditioners and generators. Small changes can make a big difference. This message is brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition.
Hello, welcome back. You are watching Tidal Flooding Talk, and we are brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition. We would like to remind our viewers to prepare before the storm. Flooding can happen quickly. Prepare ahead of time by creating a disaster plan, assembling a go bag, and signing up for emergency alerts. Make sure your family knows evacuation routes and communication plans. Preparation saves lives.
Awesome. And we're back with Levi Silvers of Colorado State. Levi, I like to always ask this question. We have had researchers from Colorado State on before. Why is a state that's doubly landlocked putting out hurricane forecasts, right? How did that all start?
It's a very good question. There's a lot of interesting history in it, but the basic question is that a very renowned hurricane expert, Professor Bill Gray, was a professor here. He and his advisor.
You're right.
Recording?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So Levi, I think as far as hurricane aficionados, you love hurricanes. Is like 2 dream jobs, like in my world, right? The Hurricane Center or working with Colorado State, because you guys revolutionized hurricane forecasting out there. So just tell me a little bit about, what's it feel to be in one of those 2, dream job scenarios. I mean, you are with, some elite forecasters out there and, media. So many people talk about the forecast that you issue. So just tell me a little bit about how it's like to work on that team, and I guess first, how you ended up there to begin with.
Yeah, it's a great privilege to be there. It's really fun. It's an exciting job, and I'm just happy about how much I'm able to learn kind of on a continuous basis. So that's a really exciting part of it. I ended up here. It's kind of a long, winding path, but I actually did my PhD at CSU. I finished that in 2011, and so I worked with my advisor is no longer there. He retired. His name is Wayne Schubert. He was an expert at kind of theoretical hurricane work. That's not what I did for my PhD. I focused on other climate related things, but kind of absorbed some of the information and some of the appreciation for hurricanes then. But the other hurricane scientist, there were other people at the university at the same time. So I could feel kind of a lot of that excitement. I ended up going and taking various postdocs and research scientist positions in other places, looking at climate patterns and cloud feedbacks and lots of other things related to the bigger climate system. And then a couple of years ago, saw this position at CSU, and I knew it was a great place. I really loved my time there as a graduate student, and it was in the hurricane group. And so I was able to kind of look into that and knew I would like to be back there. And now I can think about hurricanes in the context of climate science in general and kind of the whole Earth system. So I didn't start out being super interested in hurricanes, but it fits in nicely with what I've done before. And it's really interesting to see kind of the different sides of how you can look at hurricanes.
Levi, what makes your CSU's hurricane forecast different than your competitors in the space? Obviously, I think you're going to say the accuracy is there, but what, is there something in the process you can talk about, or something in the way that you outline the forecast?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. There's a lot of good forecasts out there, so I'm happy to say that at the outset. A lot of people are doing good work. CSU really kind of developed a reputation partly because they were the first to do this. And so Professor Gray was the first one to really recognize the connection between El Nino and what's happening in the Atlantic with hurricanes. And so he figured that out in the early 80s, late 70s, and started his forecast in the 80s as a result. So that him being able to see that long before other people could really was a major advance in the science and kind of made CSU prominent. Then I believe it was his last PhD student, Phil Klotzbach, I work with him very closely. He's the primary lead scientist on this forecast. He worked with Dr. Gray for quite a while, and Phil is brilliant. He's brilliant with statistics. He has a great mind for details. He remembers almost every storm. I could just throw out a storm name and he'll tell you all this kind of information about it. So he has a brilliant mind to kind of put things together and to be able to kind of have an intuitive sense of what to expect. And then the other thing is, if you look through our full PDF document for the forecast on our webpage, it's about 40 pages. There's a lot of different methodologies we use. And so some of it is looking at previous years, analog years. Some of it is a purely statistical approach where we have regressions of different areas of the oceans. And another piece is related to climate models and machine learning. And so all of those give slightly different numbers. And Phil and the other people on the team, we kind of look at those numbers and try to see how much do we trust them, basically. And that's based on a lot of experience. And so I think Phil's kind of unique talent at being able to look at those numbers from a lot of different methodologies and bring them into what we all feel good about as the final forecast. That's pretty unique because it's really condensing a lot of information in a special way.
Great. We're going to take our final break here. We'll come back with Levi on tidal flooding.
Welcome back to this week's Tidal Flooding Talk. We're past 4th of July, middle of summer. We're not to peak hurricane season yet, but we're talking hurricanes with Levi, Palma, Joe, and myself. So let's talk about a feature, Levi, in your forecast that's on the site, and that really cool. I mean, it's right down to your backyard, county level, percentage chances of being impacted by a tropical system this year. A cool feature, but even cooler when they're as low as they are this year. They're not zero, so we can't let our guards down, but it goes along with your prospects for a quiet season. So talk a little bit about those numbers.
Yeah, these numbers it's an exciting thing that I think a lot of people are interested in because it feels a little bit more practical than kind of abstract numbers that could apply to anywhere in the United States. And so what we've done is we've looked at the historical record, and we've looked at historically over the last 120 to 140 years where tropical storms and hurricanes have landed, made landfall on U.S. coastal regions, also in the Caribbean. And then we've just calculated probabilities of how often that happens in different regions within about a 50-mile kind of window as you go along the coastline. And then we adjust that each year based on the forecast for that year. So we shift the numbers up a little bit if it's an overactive season, and we shift the numbers down if it's below average season. So normally there's a 23% chance that New Jersey will be impacted by a named storm anywhere along the New Jersey coastline. And we're calling for this season there to be just an 8% chance of that occurring. So 8% is close to 10, right? So there's still a 1 in 10 odd chance that a tropical storm will impact somewhere on the New Jersey coastline, but that's less than half of what it usually is. So we also have numbers for hurricanes and major hurricanes, but there's a less than 1% chance that New Jersey will be impacted by a major hurricane. So that's good news. It's not zero, but it is really good news. And so we also can break that down on our website. We can look at individual counties like Burlington or Atlantic or Cape May.
Now, what's the biggest wild card, if any, that could change your forecast between now and the peak of hurricane season?
You'd probably get different answers if you asked different people on the team. I think the biggest wild card is the trade winds in the Atlantic. And so if the trade winds in the Atlantic change in a way that allows the tropical Atlantic region to really warm up substantially, then that's really just going to have a whole lot of energy that's potentially available for a hurricane that does form. We have really strong wind shear right now, and we expect strong wind shear into the rest of the main season. But if you have all that energy and really warm sea surface temperatures, sometimes it's enough to form a storm and to get that storm to kind of blow through the wind shear. So that could change things. Right now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen, but wind, the low level winds that influence the sea surface temperatures are super hard to predict.
We did talk about El Nino, but I want to bring it back just because this is like the overarching, probably the biggest weather story of 2026 here.
Yeah.
You've probably seen the El Nino forecast. We're slated to go into, I mean, at this point, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Levi. I mean, either a very strong El Nino, and that's a specific classification, or even record stage El Nino here. So when you're dealing with an event that is like a coin flip to be record breaking, if you're looking at the projections, how does that influence your forecasting? Because you're trying to forecast with something that, according to the forecast, may have never happened before.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes it tough. I mean, forecasting is really hard. Everybody always loves to make fun of forecasters, as I know you guys are very familiar with.
Yeah,
In
we get
terms
that
of
every
just,
once in a while.
but so we know it's going to be tough, but it's also really interesting, right? Because whatever your forecast is, you then get to watch what happens. And so that's, I think, probably what brings us all back to looking at the atmosphere and what it does. But this is part of why we keep bringing our forecast down, right? Because a couple of months ago, some people were saying, "Oh, we're going to have a super El Nino," and it's like, well, we might, but let's wait and see. Now we're closer to the event, and it still looks like we most likely will. And so we keep bringing our forecast numbers down because of that anticipated massive El Nino. And even if it's not the massive super El Nino, it's going to be strong. So we do, we adjusted our numbers accordingly. And also, I mentioned the sea surface temperatures before. In the past, I believe it was 2020, it is possible for sea surface temperatures to kind of override what El Nino is doing, but that just doesn't seem to be happening. El Nino seems to be getting strong, and the sea surface temperatures are kind of remaining kind of mixed at best, cold in some regions and warm in others.
Are there pockets of the ocean that we would look for development? Let's say like abnormally warm waters in the Gulf, or like off the coast of Africa, or are there no strong anomalies that would indicate, okay, development is more likely here and not here?
Yeah, there are regions. I mean, we have, if you read through the forecast document, there's what we call the main development region, and that's in the tropical Atlantic. Doesn't go into the Gulf of Mexico, but that's where most of the storms form. As you get later into the season, the storms tend to form more in the Caribbean region and the Gulf of Mexico. So those regions are really the key spots we would look at, but there's also correlations with regions further up north where we can see if those regions have a certain structure, then it tends to correlate with busier seasons. And those signals we're seeing are just rather mixed. And so the eastern part of the main development region is warmer than average right now, and the western part of it is a little bit cooler than average. That's where the trade winds I was talking about would make such a difference. They could really just shoot those temperatures a lot higher.
Sure. All right. Palma, any last questions?
I don't think so. I'm gonna be checking this forecast on August 5th to see what our update is, and it's also got me anxiously thinking about my cruise to Greece, or my Greece tour cruise coming up, and I'm like, okay, so maybe hurricanes are not likely, but we'll see.
This
Well,
sounds like a good year to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, Levi, tell us where we can follow more of the research that not only you're doing, but Colorado State's doing also.
Yeah, if you go to our web page, so if you just Google CSU and tropical, a lot of times it will come up, but it's tropical.colostate.edu. So Professor Michael Bell is the principal investigator for this whole research group, and we do a lot of different things. The forecasting is just one piece of it, but if you go to tropical.colostate.edu, you find all kinds of interesting stuff.
Awesome.
And also
right.
People can email me directly. I'm happy to talk more about this or answer questions. So that email address would be levi.silvers@colostate.edu.
Very simple. We love that. We love when it's an easy email address. All right, cool. So we're going to do, Levi, as we do at the end of every episode, the one thing we can't stop talking about, tidal flooding or otherwise. Dan, I know you're on a little bit of a time crunch, so we're going to end with you.
I don't got much this week. We had July started with a huge heat wave. Levi, you got to experience that. Record heat, severe weather, storms. It was followed with two like September-like days, unpopular opinion, got me kind of craving fall. It was like 72 degrees, cloudy, northeast wind. I loved it. And again, I know I'm in the minority there, but I enjoyed the fall preview in early July.
Glad you were
I don't
happy,
think
Dan.
you're in the minority because I do love summer, but I can't say that it's my favorite season. So, and it was just way too hot over the last couple weeks. So I'm with you on that, Dan.
All right. Levi, what's one thing you got on your mind, tidal flooding or otherwise?
Well, I'm normally in Colorado, and so it's not tidal flooding, I have to admit.
No,
But
that's
I
fine.
unfortunately,
Otherwise, it's fine.
yeah. Otherwise, it's unfortunately this season I've already seen in person 2 wildfires in Colorado, and that's more than I've ever seen before. And so that's unfortunate, and has me looking forward to fall when we get some more precipitation. It's very dry there, and I was just recently in a small mountain town right where one of the fires in southern Colorado kind of took off. There was a tree that hit a power line in a windstorm, and it just kind of sparked, and
Yikes.
we could see the flames on the mountainside and all the smoke, and it was unsettling and not good. So it's always sad when you see massive amounts of forest burning.
Yeah, and we've seen our share here in New Jersey as well. Not to the extent of Colorado, but we've seen that too.
Yeah,
All
we
right,
still get it.
so here's mine. On the 4th of July, I actually got pretty worried for us as a society. Was anyone else worried on the 4th of July, or was it just me? No.
Been worried for a
I'm
while for
always
our
worried.
society.
Are we worried that we reached peak hot dog eating contest? That we are already past the peak hot dog eating contest? Joey
Perhaps.
Chestnut won again, which was not a surprise, but he only ate 66 hot dogs this time, which is, if you look at the stats, it's a downward decline since his peak of breaking his own world record in 2021. He has, 66 was it. So that was actually 10 less than his all-time record. And getting those 70s have been harder to crack for him. So I'm wondering if we have seen peak hot dog eating in the United States. No, nobody.
I'm
Levi
worried about
cared.
a lot of things, but that's not one of them, Joe.
I'd be
Have
I'd
to
be
admit.
excited if we had reached peak hot dog eating day. I mean, this could be a good thing if the trend is down, right? You might feel less bad about humanity if the hot dog eating contest was just 30
Okay.
or something.
I'm also focusing all my worries on the Central Jersey debates, so I don't have time to
Okay. All right. Well, you can worry about Central Jersey, Dan. I'll worry about peak hot dog eating
All right.
contest. But it got me thinking. We're gonna need Joey's got to either come back with some early career magic, or we're gonna need some competition here. So anyway, that's what we have for Tidal Flooding Talk, guys. Great episode. Thank you, Levi, for coming back on again and working through some of the difficulties that I had. For Palma Shawls and Dan Skeldon, I'm Joe Martucci. We'll be back with you next Tuesday with Tidal Flooding Talk. We're talking about Harris County, Texas buyouts and some of the societal impacts from that with Dr. Evis Garcia, who's a recurring guest. So we'll look forward to that. Make sure to like and subscribe to us, and we'll talk to you soon.